Good morning, all of you. Let us continue our chapter that which we were doing in our previous class, and the topic it was Suvira. So we are going to complete the chapter today. Only the last page it is remaining. So here I am going to begin the chapter. Listen it and pay attention. My gaze traveled down her legs as they pumped their way towards the finish line. In this way, the narrator was now very anxious, eager that how that she is going to win this race. After all, her challenge, her competition was going to be very tough as she was going to compete with a very talented and a very experienced person whose name was Suvira. I hope all of you know and remember the previous classes in which I had explained everything about Suvira, what type of girl she was, what was her records in this type of event, isn't it? Everything we had all discussed in our previous class itself, and that's what it made the narrator to also very tensed that what is going to happen, how I am going to win this race, how I am going to beat her and become a winner. This type of thoughts, several thoughts that it was coming to her mind, and that is what, above all, what she could find more here was that the type of shoes that Suvira was wearing, such a brand new shoes, running shoes that she was wearing with spikes, very sharp spikes in it, which was shining so brightly it could be seen from a distance. That is what the narrator was able to make it out, with glistening sharp spikes that sprang forward. This is what the type of shoe that Suvira was wearing, and now the narrator was thinking that how I am going to beat her, how I am going to win this race. Into the track and then sprang forward again like a wild, untamable animal. How she was showing her reactions, the way in which she was making her movements, she was taking the steps, jumps, and trying to give herself a much more confidence so that she would be able to win everybody over there. This type of movements, this type of reaction which Suvira was making the narrator too very excited about this event which was going to be conducted very soon. I tried not to think about those spikes. Somehow the narrator tries to console herself by not giving that much of the importance towards to those shoes which Suvira was wearing and the type of spikes that the shoes had. She tried not to give any such type of preferences to those spikes and the shoes, and not to give that much of the importance towards to that. I concentrated instead on my own. In this way, the narrator tries to concentrate with her own action, how she is going to take this race, how she is going to participate, and how she is going to make herself very good in the position in this particular race. Mine were old and blunted though use. The type of shoes that the narrator was wearing was an old type of shoes. Even though it was old, but it was quite experienced, because with these shoes only several events that the narrator had participated and she had been victorious too. But they had experience, and yes, my old spikes were used to winning, and with this old shoes itself, so many events, so many times in the past, the different racing events that the narrator was able to win by wearing this particular shoes itself. Surely my good old spikes had some hunger left in them yet, and what it made her more and more confident that with this shoes itself, by wearing with this shoes itself, it looked as if the shoes were eager and anxious and hunger more and more to win the more coming races ahead. This is what she thought, that this shoes is going to be really very lucky shoe for her to win even this particular race too. This is what she thought and believed. I was close now, just 20 to 30 meters to go. In this way, now the narrator was very close almost 20 to 30 meters to go and get over. My old blue spikes had put me on the victory stand often enough, so many times in the past. With this old shoes only, the old shoes had made her to become victory, to become the winner in the past, in the several times in the days when such type of events when she had participated. I would take them there this time, and she was quite sure enough that this time also these shoes are going to make her the winner. This is what she believed. Past those flashily new spikes, past the home favorite, I surged forward. Suvira's head swiveled sideways to check how close I was. In this way, she was at the same time keeping a look towards to Suvira to how she was doing, how she was showing her reactions, how she was taking her activities, showing her activities, all these things that the narrator too was keeping a good close look towards to that also, that how she is performing today, going to perform today, and how she herself, the narrator herself, is going to give a good competition today with Suvira. And each and every activities, each and every movement which Suvira was making was very keenly being observed by the narrator too, so that she could also maintain the same type of spirit, same type of what you call determination with herself, so that she can give a good competition and finally wants to become a winner too. Sideways to check now how close I was. Seeing me close she stepped on the accelerator. Now in this way, both of them were keeping a good close eye contact with each other, so that who is going to take a step ahead from one another, and they were taking a good notice to one another that who is taking the step forward, who is going to accelerate, who is going to take more and more speed in this particular event which was already started. So a very good kind of look to one another they were keeping, so that they can take a good chance and a move, so that can come ahead than the other. So this is what a kind of the reaction that both these two participants were showing here. I was seeing me close she stepped on the accelerator, but I was going full steam ahead too. But at the same time, the narrator was also taking a good lead at the moment with Suvira. This is what we can understand here with these few paragraphs, children. Suvira, Suvira, and Suvira, Suvira. The whole universe reverberated, everywhere the sound of Suvira, the name of Suvira, only it could be heard. That means the entire audience, they were cheering to Suvira only because Suvira being their favorite in the past too. Everybody were cheering her only by calling her names several times, and the whole universe reverberated. Reverberated means it was made a kind of vibrating sound, that it was being created because of those sounds which those audience were making at that time. With the name of my worthy opponent, we ran together now. In this way, both the participants, Suvira as well as the narrator, was now running shoulder to shoulder, head to head together in the same lane now with one another. Step for step, stride for stride, the old favorite with new shoes, the newcomer with old ones. In this way, they were now giving a very good competition to one another, and the audience were really enjoying the type of event that it was being conducted here, and the way in which these two participants were showing the kind of spirit, so that both of them wanted to win the race, and the entire audience was really enjoying this particular event. The tape was within arm's reach now. Almost the event was going to its end, as they were able to realize that the finishing tape was also almost an arm distance remaining now. She charged towards it. I charged towards it. Both the participants, the narrator as well as Suvira, both of them charged towards to the finishing tape, so that they could become the winner. I could feel my lungs bursting with the effort. The narrator was able to realize that how she was now at this moment feeling with those lungs bursting with effort. I could hear her gasping too at the same time. How was Suvira at this moment feeling? She was too gasping. Gasping means taking a very long breaths because of such type of race which that they had participated had given them a lot of energy to consume. So that is why the breathing had become so speedy that they could sense their breathings too now at this moment. That is what the narrator is now trying to tell us here. I could hear her gasping too, hear her through the roaring pain of effort in my ears. I ducked my head and breasted the tape. She ducked her head and breasted the tape. Both of them now tried their level best in order to touch the tape. First, both of them drooped down their head and stretched their arms as far as possible so that they wanted to touch the finishing tape first in order to become the winner in this event. Both of them now, they ducked their head and tried and breasted to touch the tape first. I crossed the finish line. She crossed the finish line. In this way, the narrator crosses the finish line. At the same time, Suvira too crosses the finish line. Now I suppose you are able to make it out who might have become the winner here. The person who crosses the finishing line first, that person is regarded to be the winner, isn't it? The crowd went wild. By this much of the time, already the audience was roaring and shouting and whistling and clapping like wild. It was going such a beautiful sight there to observe. Cheering and chanting, still chanting Suvira's name. All of them were cheering and chanting, and at the same time they were chanting Suvira's name once again here. But in between the chanting, there were voices that asked. In the middle of the chanting sounds which were heard, in the middle of those chanting sounds, some other people were also there, those who were talking to one another and shouting to one another with their loud voices, that they asked, "Hey, who is that? What's that new girl's name?" Everybody were very curious to know. All of the audience were very curious to know that who is that new girl? What is her name? Who gave her such a good competition to Suvira? What is her name? Who is she? Everybody were very excited and they were delighted to know that girl, the new girl who had given such a good competition. And then we were standing there together on the top step of the victory stand, where both of us were used to standing alone. She turned to me and smiled, a friendly open smile, as though she was genuinely happy. In this way, after the completion of the event, now it comes to the prize giving ceremonies, and then we were standing there. Where there means on the stands, victory stands, there both of them were standing at that time together on the top steps of the victory stand, where both of us were used to standing alone. In the earlier hours, both of them used to stand alone there. She turned to me and smiled. At that moment, Suvira happens to turn towards to the narrator and gives a smile, a friendly, open smile, as though she was genuinely happy. A friendly smile that she passes towards to the narrator as if she was very much happy and genuinely she was happy. This is what a kind of reaction that it was shown by Suvira towards to the narrator. "Well done," she said. "Well done," I said. Both of them now greeted to one another. First of all, Suvira greeted her, "Well done, friend," and then Suvira and narrator too greeted to Suvira saying, "You too, well done." Then we joined hands and raised them to acknowledge the cheering of our school, my school. In this way, when both of these two participants happens to stand there on that victory stand and raises the hands, both of them together, at that time, then we joined hands and raised them to acknowledge the cheering of the school, my school. In this way, at that moment, both of them were able to realize what a kind of cheering sounds that they were able to hear there, which was made by the audience, and here the cheering sounds were made of their own school, as both of them had become the winners this time. So this is what we come to learn here, children, in this particular chapter. We have completed the chapter today, so we will stop it here. This much for today. Rest of the works, exercises, question answer, that we will be doing it in our next class. Or this much for today. So thank you very much.